Hello, everyone. It looks like we're live on Facebook. Welcome to this month's celebration of the end of month 3. Can you believe it already? Of the Lady Darby Read-Along, which we're celebrating. We just finished reading A Grave Matter, book 3, which I know a lot of you have confessed is one of your favorites. It's one of my favorites too. There's lots of great scenes and, of course, lots of romance. So let me check on Facebook to make sure we are live and we are good to go. Yes, great. I'm going to chat. I'm going to read a scene or two. And if you have any questions, please pop them into the comments. I want to discuss what you want to discuss, what you want to hear about. So if you have questions, or if you just want me to talk about a certain topic that is covered in the book or in my writing in that, I'm happy to do that too. So I can just kind of, wax on about whatever you want to hear about. So so go ahead and make sure you comment, and I'll be checking those periodically. First of all, I know a lot of you wanted me to talk about Bonnie Brock. He is one of your favorite secondary characters or favorite characters of the whole series. And he's one of my favorite too. I've mentioned this before, that he was definitely not planned to be a big character. He was kind of supposed to be in a scene or two in A Grave Matter. And then I wasn't really planning to use him again. But as soon as he walked on the screen in that scene when he kidnaps Kira in her carriage, he just kind of took over. He wasn't going away. A lot of that scene was planned, but also not planned. And I just love the way it turned out. And I just was like, I'm just going to let him talk and just go with it. And yeah, he is fun. He has been a pure creation of creativity. I'll put it that way. So, and then I've had to go back, he started talking and I knew nothing about him. I had to go back then and try to figure out what his backstory and who he was and who was his sister and all of that. So he's a lot of fun, and we'll see him throughout the series. He just keeps coming back because I just love using him. He's a lot of fun. I hope to use him again in the future. I'm working on finishing Lady Darby book 10 right now. It's almost done, and they're not in Edinburgh, so he's not in that book, but I hope to use him in the future. So he's just so much fun to do, to use. Let's see. Yes, hello everyone. Thank you for joining me. I'm so glad you guys get excited. Who would you say Bonnie Brock looks like? I don't know. I'm so bad at this. I get asked a lot of times, who would you cast as your characters? And I don't know. I see them in my mind, but I don't usually pick out celebrities or models or whatever to match who my characters are. So I don't know which could work to my favor, because if it ever was made into a film or whatever, then I wouldn't have my heart set on a certain kind of look. So so I don't really know. I mean, I know what he looks like. I describe him in the book, but I can't really point to somebody that who I would cast as him. Yes, book 10, I know, right? I'm like in the little bit of the sleep deprived state of finishing that up. So I'm working on edits right now. But it's exciting. The other thing in this book, the art features a lot, which it features a lot in book 10. So I'm thinking a lot about art right now and Kira's process. And I loved getting to write those scenes where she's struggling in the beginning, because so many artists can relate to that in different ways. And I've had artists reach out to me to say that they appreciated those scenes and the way, the authenticity of them. And then I love that she gets it back from letting herself paint Gage, like she's been wanting to paint him, which of course, rolls into the scene where Gage first sees this portrait of him and the proposal, which goes badly. And that whole set of sequence of scenes, and then her and Trevor in the graveyard. I love that whole sequence. Getting to reread it again after so long. It's funny, we think back on our work, but we're separate from it, and then when we read it, when we've been, when we've not looked at it in such a long time, it's like this feeling of pride. Oh gosh, I did that, like, so I love those scenes. It was a lot of fun getting to reread them again after, I don't even know, 5 years, 6 years since I've reread them. So I'm enjoying this read along because there's a lot of books, some of these early books I haven't read in so long. So it's a good refresher for me. So today, oh yay, well, happy vacation, going on your vacation, Shelley. Yes, so if you have any questions or comments, sure, go ahead and pop those in. I want to answer and talk about what you want to hear. So the inspiration for the plot of this book, this is another thing that I get asked a lot, was actually came from watching a Lincoln documentary. I've discussed this a little bit. I did not know that there was a plot by these Chicago money launderers and stuff to actually steal Lincoln's remains from his grave in Springfield, Illinois, and then basically ransom them back to the government. I just thought that was crazy. I mean, this was years after he died, so it would have just been his bones, and well, not his bones, because he was actually cremated. But anyway, this was years after he passed, and his body wasn't guarded. But fortunately, the Pinkertons, I believe it was, got wind of the plot and actually foiled it, and it didn't happen. But I thought, wow, that goes so well with this whole body snatching thing, that Kira's her scandalous past and the Burke and Hare and the body snatchers. But why would body snatchers snatch old bodies, that they can't be used for anatomy classes and things, so, and for school. So that was kind of where the genesis of that plot came from. Why would they be stealing them? Just running through all those questions. So my plots really come from like a wide variety of strange places. So everything is fodder for an author. So even something you tell me sometimes gives me ideas. Reading your comments or your questions and things. Was there ever a version where she accepted his first proposal? No, because I knew I needed to basically force a crisis in her, because she's been through so much, but she doubts herself so much. And I needed that. They both needed to come to that place to understand the other person, and that they really were meant to be together, and that they really were going to be happy together. And all those things, all those thought processes that Kira goes through in that scene, she needed to do. And until he made that proposal, I don't think she would have done it. And then also Trevor really helps her and talks her through that. He's a really good big brother in that moment. And Gage, he's not on screen, but I imagine him, and it comes out a little bit in the comments he makes to her later. And when he walks away, he's furious. I mean, he's hurt. He's, how could she, turn him down? How could she think that he was like Sir Anthony? But it also, once his temper cools, allows him time to think about, where Kira is and how she's been hurt, and all that she shared with him that she doesn't share with anybody. And made him realize, oops, I didn't tell her the most important thing I needed to tell her, that she needs to know that she's wanted for who she is, and that he loves her, and all that. So it was kind of, it was fitting. It just was right. Having her accept just felt false. Like the blow up would have happened later. It would have been her, and I just can't imagine Kira she's confused by him. She's not afraid, with him, she's not afraid to say what she's really thinking. And so I feel like she would have been stifling a lot if she just said yes. So that's a long answer. Sorry. Oh yay, I'm so glad you love rereading the books. This has been so much fun. Let's see, this is my favorite book in the series, Gage in the Carriage, Kira eating and painting. Again, Trevor and Brock, and oh yes, I know lots of great characters. I love Jock too, the cousin, which is in the novella, also the wedding novella, but I don't think he's in any other books, but I'd love to use him again. He's just so much fun. So he's somebody that's like in my list of, I've got to find a way to include Jock. So, let's see. I love the scene where they go to the Lord Shellingham's estate. Yeah, yeah, their maturity. I know, right? Um, I know. Yeah, I know. You wanted them to really kick them in the butt after all that they did. Yeah, yeah. But this shows Trevor and Gage's maturity versus their lack of maturity. They're talking about Shellingham and Young and Mr. Young. Yeah, Dingbat is perfect. Yes, I love getting to have Trevor finally come into the book really in person. Can you tell us more about the family, how they came about and their dynamic? So I'm from a big family. I have 4 brothers and one sister. So having siblings was just a natural decision. And it's actually kind of funny because she only has 2, but which is probably why Verity has a lot more. But yeah, I don't know. I can't remember exactly why I decided who her siblings were. I believe Alana came about because I needed an excuse for why she was in the Highlands. Where was she? She was at her brother-in-law's estate in book 1. So that's kind of how Alana came about. And at the beginning of writing the series, I almost thought of myself more as Alana because I'm the older sister in my family. But as it's gone along, I've realized I'm both in different ways. So it's interesting. And then the brother, I guess, because I have so many brothers, I couldn't imagine her not having a brother. So, and I'm the second oldest with, I have one older brother and I have all these younger siblings. So it was kind of nice to do the reverse, and Kira's the youngest. So plus after everything she's been through, people are protective of her, but they didn't even know they couldn't protect her. So it was that whole dynamic. And really writing both of them, I had some idea of their backstories, but they really just felt natural to me, and they just came kind of natural. I do that sometimes when I'm not sure who a character is. I'll just kind of be like, okay, I'm just going to write a few scenes and let them just talk to me and let them interact and see. And that's really what I did with Trevor a lot, especially that scene in the beginning and in the first scene in the churchyard was him really telling me who he was and realizing there's some secrets there and all that. And that then I sat aside and said, okay, what's going on, and figured all of that out before I wrote the rest. So sometimes that gives me better ideas, and it lets it feel more natural to me. So, which is why I'm very much a mix of a plotter and a pantser. So, let's see. Yes. The torque. Yeah, it doesn't get resolved in this book. Did I plan to resolve it? Okay, so this book, funnily enough, is my longest book. And I actually got a little bit in trouble. It was too long, a little slap on the wrist. Publishers have a certain word count they want you to hit. And if you go a little over, they're okay. But this was way over. So from the future out, I couldn't write books this long. But because this book was so long, and there was just so much to include in it, that was part of it. And I made the plot really complicated and stuff, that the torque wouldn't fit. And as I was writing it, I realized that it was getting to be too long, and I had to just set that aside and worry about it later, which was fun to get to pick it up to finish the story of that in the wedding novella. It gives me, that was me also learning it's kind of fun to leave a little bit of some danglers if they're not crucial to the plot, so that you can pick them up for later books and it just feels like a natural flow. So yeah, I know Gage is not, he's learned that he can't trust people easily, that opening up and telling people about himself in the past has ended up hurting him. And so he's just very guarded, which it's an interesting dynamic because he expects Kira to tell him things, but he doesn't want to share himself. So it's really them both fighting against their natural natures that they've learned. I guess it's not nature, it's nurture. I guess I would say in their past. So, and we learn more and more about Cage and all the things he's been through. And he definitely in the later books is much more open. Kira knows him better. I mean, he's willing to share that. So, and that yeah, I can't give too much away, but there's some stuff coming up in books 10, 11, 12 that yeah, so but yes, yeah, in the beginning he's definitely, it's like, come on dude, what's your problem here? um I know Trevor, I want to do more with Trevor. I need to do more with Trevor, and I've got to find his match. I'm just not sure, you know, I got to figure that out. Let's see. Let's see. Just checking all your questions. Oh yes, when when Gage first arrive and the scene between Trevor and Gage, yes, it's funny when they're both posturing. Yeah. And Kira's like, what the? She's much less understanding with her brother, which is how I think most people would be. I think I would do that with my brothers. I'd be like, come on. Um, I know, and not telling about the, yeah. Sometimes that's a story plot too. I will say that you want to think that they would tell that, but then you also need that for the plot. So I couldn't let that drag on too long though. Oh, danglers. Well, thank you. I'm glad I do a good job with them. Do you ever pre-plot the character arcs ahead for multiple? I do, yes. How do you keep all of your amazing side characters so involved and interesting? Oh, thanks. I know I do take pride in my like big, huge cast of side characters. So yes, I definitely do plot some of the character arcs ahead of time. Kira's has definitely been plotted at times out multiple books, and Gage, and other characters too. So it just kind of depends. Sometimes it's plotted, and sometimes as I'm writing, they just say something pops out of their mouth, and I'm like, ooh, and then I just go with it. So, so it's kind of a mix. That's why I said I'm such a big mix. I need to know where I'm going, but I don't like knowing completely, because there's always these things pop up that I want to run with, because they just make the story so much better, and they just feel natural. Yes, Bonnie Brock will be back at some point. I can't tell you exactly when, but because I'm finishing book 10, book 11 is under contract, and I know what's happening in that one. And I have plots for at least 3 more after that. Hopefully, I just love for it to keep going on. So, but Bonnie Brock isn't in 10 or 11. I can tell you that. So, so it's fun. So I'm gonna read one scene. A lot of you all keep making comments and questions. I'll check in a minute here to see if there's any more. A lot of you suggested a lot of different scenes. The problem in this book is there's so many good ones, but they're also long. So it was a little tricky finding a good scene. So I'm going to read one that happens in the carriage. It's a little bit of, well, you'll know what I'm talking about. I loved one of the comments somebody made in the read-along group, which I'll share after I finish the scene. But it's when Gage arrives soon after, and he and Kira are alone in the carriage for the first time, leaving Clint Main's Hall to go to St. Boswell's. So, and I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. The silence stretched between us, heavy with our unspoken thoughts. And I suddenly realized this was the first time we had been alone without the potential of interruption since Gage had climbed into my carriage in Edinburgh to say goodbye. I swallowed the sticky residue of nerves that coated my throat and mouth and wondered just what he was thinking. And then I wished I hadn't. Kira, why did you send for me? His voice was gentler than normal, but determined, as if he'd been initially hesitant to ask the question, but changed his mind. Though I'd known it was coming, it was the question I had been dreading, mostly because I did not know how to answer it, or perhaps more fairly, did not want to answer it. Because of the investigation, of course, I replied, unable to look at him. Lord Buchanan asked me to. My gloved fingers clenched tighter together in my lap during the pause that followed. Is that all? I don't know what you mean. I stared blindly up the window while I braced for the onslaught of whatever his response would be, if there was any response at all. After all, I'd risked wounding the man's pride. Liar. I jolted at the quietly teasing tone of his voice. I turned to see his pale winter blue eyes twinkling at me as if in jest, but I would have been a fool not to also notice the hard edge of his stare, the fierceness. I sat immobile, not knowing how to reply. Was I glad to see him? Yes. But would I have ever sent for him of my own accord if I had not been prodded into doing so? I didn't know. Everything inside me was jumbled when it came to Gage. I didn't know how to sort it out. So ultimately, I settled for the truth. You confuse me. I could tell I'd surprised him, for some of the surety vanished from his expression. I confuse you? Yes. When he simply stared at me as if willing me to elaborate, I sighed and lifted a hand to my forehead. I don't know what else you want me to say, I snapped in exasperation. I don't seem to know anything when it comes to you. His gaze softened, though that edge of fierceness remained. Surely that's not true. I glared at him. You know how I feel about you. I blinked at him in astonishment. Was the man daft? I shook my head. No, I don't. His eyes flashed. Then I'll just have to remind you. The next thing I knew, I was in his arms, and he was kissing me with all the devastating thoroughness I'd come to expect from him. And yet, under all of his skill, there was also a note of urgency, of desperation, and it was that emotion that resonated with me most of all, for it matched my own. When he pulled back, I could not open my eyes, not with my emotions so stirred up inside me, shimmering on the surface. But I clung to the front of his greatcoat, unwilling to let go. So he pressed his lips to my forehead and held me close. I had just decided to venture looking up at him when a shout from outside the carriage forced us to separate. We turned to see a man outside the window hailing our coachman as the carriage began to slow and the first row of cottages at the edge of what must be the village of St. Boswell's came into view. So one of you commented that rather than being I burned for you or whatever it was, that Kira Gage will be known for, you confuse me, which I thought was funny because that's very accurate. Oh my goodness. Yes, I have thought about giving some of my side characters books or novellas. There's a few that are kind of top runners on that. It's just finding the right way to do it. Yeah, and the time. So yeah, definitely they're in my mind. Or maybe I'll do just some fun, like bonus material sometime when I have some time that I'll post, in my newsletter, or there's always a possibility of that, or some kind of other promotion. So yeah, I would love to do some side novellas with some of these characters. So that's definitely a possibility. Yes, and I have to talk about the final scene, which I love. I had planned that out for a long time. I actually have a picture on my wall of the Singing Butler by, oh my goodness, I'm gonna blank his name, Jack Verano, something like that. Anyway, he's very popular. A lot of people have that picture, but it made me, that was basically the inspiration for that final scene, except that it's not on a beach. They're in Northumberland, the Cheviot Hills, or the Teviot Hills, can't remember. No, I can't remember. One of those hills. And I found a picture of a scene and I thought it was just perfect. It was exactly what I describe in the book. And I wish that I could find it. I need to look it up. I need to find it again. I've got it somewhere buried on my computer and share it. But that's where I pictured the scene happening, and Anderley singing and them dancing, and it just played out exactly how I wanted it to. So I love the ending of the book. It's one of my favorite endings for sure. Yeah, and it's one of those scenes that if it was ever a film, I could just imagine it so vividly. So maybe someday. I know that Anderley, so this book is a lot of fun also because it's the first book Bree's in, and it's the first book we really get to see Anderley in any light other than just briefly mentioned. So there's little hints of what's to come from him. And a lot of that I didn't necessarily have planned. I knew that I wanted them to have a bigger part in the series, and eventually, especially as they move away from Kira's family and places they know, that they would play a bigger part. And so getting to start establishing his character, especially because we know that he wasn't so keen on Kira at first, and her winning him over, and his just unflinching loyalty to Gage, which is what they bond over, really. So that scene, it's fun. It's funny. I could just, yeah, but he actually just does it. It's funny. So, but he also has that, we later learned, you know, he's Italian. He has that, his mother was a singer, and this is romantic. He definitely has a romantic streak. We just don't get to see very often. So, but maybe coming out later. Oh yeah, we learned in a later book that Gage met Anderley. He was one of the Italian boys, which I describe about in Our List of Mice. And when Gage wasn't paying attention, when he was in Cambridge, after he was grieving his mother, he was attacked, and Anderley basically interfered and saved him from getting hurt much worse. And Gage basically took him on more as an errand boy at first, but Anderley was so good at just learning and mimicking that he very quickly became his chief manservant, his valet. And yeah, so I would love to delve more into their origin. I mean, I give it just very briefly, but I have in my head scenes of them in their early time. And maybe someday I'll have Gage describe that, or maybe even Anderley describe that to Kira. I have some interesting scenes between Kira and Anderley in book 10. So, which is to come, which I just found out is available for pre-order. I just found that out today. So I don't have a cover yet. It's coming. But the book is up at bookstores for pre-order. If you're curious and you want to read the back cover blurb of what the book's about. So anyway, so it's on the way, April 5th next year. So I have a pub date, and it's up for pre-order. The age difference between Gage and Anderley is not as far as you would think. It's so darn. I have it written down, and I actually had to double check it for this book. But it's less than 5 years, if I remember right. Anyway, so it's not a huge difference. I think it's 4 or 5 years, something like that. So, because at the time when he was in Cambridge, he was, only like 19 or 20. Anyway, so something. Anyway, sorry, I have to go back and look at my notes. I have all these copious notes because there's so much to remember, and I don't want to get it wrong. I don't want to say the wrong thing or write the wrong thing, and I don't have time to always go back through the books to try to find it. So any other questions or comments, go ahead and pop those in. Otherwise, I wanted to tell you that we are starting A Study in Death, book 4, soon as this is over, I guess. So that will be next month. The event will be August 12th at 8 p.m. Here on Facebook Live. And then, like always, I post it you can always watch it here on replay on Facebook, or I post it to my YouTube channels if you're watching this later and you're not on Facebook. So, and also I'm having an author chat next week on the 14th, which I believe is Wednesday, the 14th, with Susan McNeil, Rachel McMillan, and Ashley Weaver. We're going to talk about The Hollywood Spy and Mozart Code and oh my goodness. I'm forgetting the name. Ashley's new book, A Peculiar Combination. Yes, there we go. So, and all things, just lots of fun. It'll be a lot of fun. A little bit of a free for all. This is the first time I've done 4 of us at the same time. So, but I know it'll be a lot of fun. That's at 8 p.m. next Wednesday on the 14th. So, and then, I already told you that. So let me check for any other questions. Oh, thank you, Melinda. Yes, Murder Most Fair comes out August 31st. That's Verity Kent book 5. And August 31st, and it's obviously up for pre-order everywhere. And I'm getting book events set up for that now, so those will be coming. I'll be announcing those, and I'm excited about the book. We are in that book. We get to finally meet Verity's family, so we're going to go back to the Yorkshire Dales, to where she grew up. It's a very emotional book. It was very tricky to write during the pandemic. I was writing it at the end of last year. So yeah, it took a lot out of me, but I'm really proud of it. But yes, it's definitely one of those emotional books, and the Verity's story and her grief over her brother is a big part of it. And so yeah, there is a mystery, obviously, but it is a big part of it also. Her journey is we get to see her in a kind of a different light in that book. Oh, the way we meet Bonnie Brack, how did I come up with it? I'm trying to remember now. I think I needed a way for him to realistically have enough time to interact with Kira. And so that's how I came up with him kidnapping her in the carriage. And I had to work out how on earth he could get away with it. So there was a lot of, thinking and plotting about that. I believe that's where the genesis of it came from. And I also thought that it was fun that it starts off this whole thing where he and Gage back and forth, Gage is searching for him. And while he's searching for him with McLean, Bonnie Brack here is kidnapping his girl, So it just kind of kicks off that whole little contentious, relationship that we see go on, They're very reluctant allies on Kira's part and for their investigations. So that was fun. I'm so glad you pre-ordered. Pre-orders help authors tremendously. So anytime you pre-order, thank you. Anytime you read the books, thank you. Anytime you borrow from the library, I appreciate it. So any of those things. And if you can't pre-order, if you prefer to borrow from the library, just be sure to get in there and put in your request that you want the book or get on the list, whatever, because that actually helps us too, because that shows them the interest. So I'm excited. Yes, it'll be a really fun author chat next week. The dynamic between Verity and her parents and siblings, it's especially the siblings you're gonna get a kick out of. So a little bit. There's none of them are my siblings, but I definitely use your inspiration from all of my vast number of sibling relationships and sisters-in-law and brothers-in-law and I have 4 brothers, 1 sister, 6 sisters-in-law, something like that, and 4 brothers-in-law, and I have a lot of siblings. So, which I love them all. So, but they help me just in all those dynamics and things. So hopefully some of that rings true for you and in your experiences. So when you read the books. Anyway, so this has been a lot of fun. And thank you guys for joining me. And like I said, I'll be back next week for the author chat and next month for Study in Death. And if you are not a part of the Lady Darby Read-Along group, and you're on Facebook, please join us. I will post the link to that in the comments below. And yes, Murder Most Fair is out August 31st. That's Verity Camp Book 5, and Book 10, Lady Darby Book 10, A Perilous Perspective, is out August 5th of next year, 2022. So that's all my plugs. And this was a lot of fun. If I missed any of your questions, please post them in the group and I'll make sure to get them next week. So thank you guys very much and have a wonderful night.